Hello and welcome back to my floor. So this week, I feel like we've discussed enough. We've been through enough here together that I can finally share with you one of my favorite things. My Hugh Grant shirt. I'll sit up a bit, but you see that? Look at it. Oh, I love it. It's such a good shirt. Shout out to my friend Hannah for getting it as a graduation present for me. Fun fact about this shirt, every time I wear it out, people do remind me that man will take the tube sometimes, and at this point, I've accepted it. It's fate. You know what? It's fate if he sees me in it. So, now that we know about one of my greatest joys, I would like to explain why I love Hugh Grant so much and the Hugh Grant cinematic universe. So to start with, for those of you who don't know, Hugh Grant is a British actor. He was born in 1960. Let me check that. Yeah, September 9th of 1960 here in London. He born and raised, went to Oxford for college. Really didn't break out until 1987 in Maurice. But really became household name for Four Weddings and a Funeral in 1994. This is what Hugh Grant looked like in the 90s. This is what he looks like now. And this is his mugshot. So, for this video, and me discussing my love for the Hugh Grant cinematic universe, I don't find it necessary to talk about his personal life. I don't think it's necessary to discuss any of the awards he has. I think it's important to discuss the movies. I will be ignoring any TV show or Red Nose Day special because, well, yes, it is technically a continuation of the movie or a parody of the movie or whatever. I don't know. I don't watch them. I'm not from here. So let's just get into Hugh's movies. He tends to do three kinds of movies, generally. This doesn't cover all of them, but it covers most of them. 1, period dramas. 2, he did a lot of romantic comedies. And 3, action movies. So I would like to specifically discuss, because it is the section I've watched the most of, the romantic comedies. Now, if you're really fun and cool, you've seen me talk about a lot of these movies before, because a lot of them were in my tier ranking video for romantic comedies. Subtle, not so subtle plug there. I love these movies. Does he play the same character in most of them? Absolutely he does. Does that bother me? Never. Absolutely never. He's got two characters. And when I say this, know that in some of these movies he does have a job. I just don't care. It's jobless, very sweet man. Or British businessman who lives in New York. Those are the 2 characters he plays in romantic comedies. There's not really any in between. I do know in Notting Hill he does own a bookshop, but he's kind of jobless. He doesn't really do anything for that. And I love him for that. Also, it's fine. But yeah, I adore romantic comedies. I think they're fun. I think they're pinnacle of cinema. And he does have a very good quote from one of his interviews. Did I write it down? Absolutely not, because I'm the worst. But it's along the lines of people don't understand that it's actually hard as well to do genuinely good light comedy performances in the same way it's hard to do dramatic performances. They're all a skill, they're all an art. And I respect you for that. I'm a big fan of that sentiment. So I don't want to dive too much deeper into his romantic comedy eras, which was really the late 90s to early 2000s, because again, as I've said, I've covered a lot of those. But I would, before getting into my main point I want to make today, I would like to briefly touch on his other categories Have I watched a lot of the period dramas? Absolutely, I haven't. I do need to watch Sense and Sensibility, but like also I want to read the book, so it's like this whole thing. Like, to be quite honest, I have yet to watch the Colin Firth Pride and Prejudice because it's like 8 hours long. Colin, 8 hours? Colin, I get it's a TV show. Like 8 hours? Colin. So yeah, I do kind of skimp on those, and I also kind of skimp on his action movies. I have seen one of them. What was it? Now I've gotta look it up. Most recent Google search for this man was Hugh Grant mugshot. Good for me. Movies. I did learn during this video that he was gonna be in Wonka as an Oompa Loompa, and I have yet to know how I feel about that. So, what is it? It's an action movie. He's definitely not like a main guy. It's like, where is it? Is it not in here? Does Google not want to tell me? It's got all the stupid Bridget Jones movies in here. I never watched any of them. I don't care. I'm gonna be honest. I read the plot summary for Bridget Jones' Diary. Did not intrigue me. Is it No. Maybe I'm just confusing The Gentleman with a different movie, and I think that's what it is, and that's okay. Anyway, he was also in the second Knives Out movie, which I find very fun. But yeah, to summarize that point, I guess, getting back around to it. Haven't watched many of the action movies, haven't watched many of the period pieces, but that's okay, because romantic comedies are very important, valid pieces of media, and the world needs to respect that. I also do love the new path he's been taking in his roles, where it's like, I'm just gonna kind of be a goofy guy in this movie. Most of the time, I'm also the villain, or at least a villain. This is seen in like Paddington 2, delightful, and I believe the Dungeons and Dragons movie that just came out with Chris Pine. Light of my life, Chris Pine. I'm assuming, I never watched the Dungeons and Dragons movie. I don't know anyone who has, but from the ads it seems like he was maybe just a bit of a goofy guy, very much like Jeff Goldblum in Thor Ragnarok, like that character. So I appreciate that. It gives me very much the energy of when like grandparents who are famous actors. To my knowledge, he doesn't have grandkids. Again, didn't really go into his personal life like that. But like, it's like when like actors who are like grandparents or something are like, yeah, I did this because I knew my grandkid would love it. That is the exact energy being in Paddington 2 had for me. So, thank you, Hugh. I did appreciate it. I know that was for me specifically. And not because the Paddington movies are a beloved franchise. However, this does conclude my bit on him and his actual acting roles. I would now like to move on to the main point I wanted to make this video about. Hugh Grant only speaks in a British accent. All of the movies he's done, he's never done an American accent. I've seen some people try to argue that in Bridget Jones he does, which is why I had to look at the plot, because I watched half of the ad. I was like, what's going on here? I'm gonna be honest, she kind of, like, I know Hugh Grant's character's not great in that movie, but she's kind of her own villain. But like, you could like argue he's American, but like, it's a thing where I came here and like, you always expect accents to be thicker than they are, and like, the accents aren't that far off from what I consider an American accent. It doesn't seem like they have too much of it. I just think he had less accent in the movie than like other movies he's done, and that's okay. But yeah, he's never done an American accent. It is beyond fascinating to me. But I also kind of agree with him in his reasoning, because he said in an interview, basically just like, he basically says he thinks his accent sounds too generic, which is funny. Like, we don't all do very generic British accents in the US. And that, like, it basically, if the production would require him to do an American accent, why wouldn't they just hire an American actor? He said basically, like, if the production really required an American accent, like, that much, they would just hire an American actor over him, because there are plenty of talented ones. And I was like, you know what? He's so right. And at this point, like, he doesn't need to use any accent that isn't some British, because he'll do like regional British, but he won't do like anything really outside of that. So I do find that interesting, and like kind of respectable that he's just like, if they really wanted me to do it, they could just hire an American. And you know what? Good for him. Good for him for sticking to his guns. I do think it's a little funny that he's like, no, I just don't want to do it. It's average. Which is what I tell people about my British accent. I'm like, no, it's embarrassing. I'm never gonna do it. Not for you guys, not here. It's embarrassing to do in public. But like, here we are. Look. This is my entire discussion on the Hugh Grant cinematic universe. It really just came down to the man never uses an American accent. And you know what? I kind of respect his reasoning. And I think that's an entirely valid thing to make a whole video about, however long this ends up being. Probably what, like 12 minutes? I don't know. I don't see a timer when I film. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. Yeah, maybe I'll do another actor sometime. But yeah, just something fun, something light, something fun, fresh for the end of May. We started May on such a bad note. We might as well end on a funky, fun, and fresh note. So yeah, thank you for joining me. I hope you have a good time in whatever you're doing. And I will see you next time. Okay, bye. Oh God, that was cold. That was just like a gross level of cold. I need to finish my tea before I film, is what we're learning.